Now, they made their largest attempt to attack Moscow with drones and shot them down. There was no significant damage at all in Moscow. But this is a desperation play on the part.
This is not militarily significant, right? This is just trying to taunt the public. Oh, your apartment building is going to be attacked by a drone.
Right. But the Russian air defense proved capable of taking them down. Well, what's fascinating is there was an exchange. The Russians and Ukrainians exchanged cadavers, dead soldiers. For every 15 dead Ukrainians, the Russians got one dead Russian back. In other words, that's the rate at which the Ukrainians are being killed. I posted at sonar21.com last night a brief video that shows a trench in Kursk just filled with Ukrainian bodies. And we're not talking one or two. I mean, dozens. So what's taking place is the offensive by Russia is accelerating, and it's accelerating all along the front. And they're moving according to the plan of the general staff. Once they surround, they're in the process right now of preparing the battlefield to envelop Pokrovsk, which has been a critical logistics center for the Ukrainians. But the Russians have made particular advances over the last week in the very southern part of Donetsk. So they're in a position that they very well could end up clearing Donetsk entirely, maybe by the end of December. And why that's important is that's where the bulk of the Ukrainian army is. So it is, Ukraine they can't change the dynamic. And the dynamic is this: they do not have enough manpower. They're losing them. They don't have a means to train them. And even if they get them trained, the supply of equipment available for them is very limited. So, if you're fighting a war, those are the last three things you want to have going against you, because that means you won't be able to fight.
Larry Johnson's analysis offers a sobering glimpse into the dire state of the Ukraine conflict, laying bare the devastating human toll and the strategic realities shaping the battlefield. Let's break down the key elements of his remarks and explore the larger implications for Ukraine, Russia, and the broader geopolitical landscape. Ukraine's largest attempt to attack Moscow with drones reflects more than just military strategy. It highlights the desperation of a nation grappling with limited options. Russia's air defense systems, known for their technological sophistication, successfully intercepted these drones, preventing any significant damage. While these attacks may boost morale temporarily or send a message to the Kremlin, they fail to achieve tangible results on the ground. The question is, what does Ukraine gain from these high-risk, low-reward operations? With each failed assault, they reveal not only their desperation but also their inability to alter the course of the conflict in their favor. Perhaps the most chilling part of Johnson's remarks is the stark disparity in casualty ratios. 15 Ukrainian soldiers killed for every one Russian. This imbalance underscores the devastating human cost of Ukraine's resistance. Videos emerging from the front lines, such as the one Johnson referenced showing trenches filled with Ukrainian bodies, are a haunting testament to the scale of the losses. For Ukraine, these casualty rates are unsustainable. With its military forces dwindling and an increasingly limited pool of recruits, the question is not just how long they can continue to fight but whether they can endure at all. Unlike Ukraine's high-profile drone assaults, Russia's approach is methodical and calculated. Johnson highlights the Russian General Staff strategy to encircle and isolate key logistics hubs like Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk, a critical supply center for Ukrainian forces, is at risk of being enveloped. The loss of such a hub would deal a severe blow to Ukraine's ability to sustain its operations in the region. In the southern part of Donetsk, Russia has made significant advances, positioning itself to clear the region entirely. Achieving this objective would not only secure a strategic victory but also demoralize Ukrainian forces concentrated in the area. Johnson identifies three critical vulnerabilities for Ukraine. Manpower shortages. Ukraine's armed forces are hemorrhaging soldiers at an alarming rate. Recruitment efforts are struggling to keep pace with losses, and the available pool of recruits is shrinking rapidly. Inadequate training. Even when new recruits are available, the time and resources needed to train them are in short supply. This leads to poorly prepared soldiers being sent into high-intensity combat zones. Equipment deficits. Western aid has been vital, but it's not enough. Tanks, artillery, and ammunition are being consumed faster than they can be replaced, leaving Ukrainian forces increasingly ill-equipped. These challenges are a recipe for disaster in any prolonged conflict, and Ukraine's ability to address them is severely constrained. Western nations have played a pivotal role in sustaining Ukraine's defense, providing financial aid, weapons, and training. But as the conflict drags on, cracks are starting to appear in this support network. Economic pressures, political fatigue, and shifting public opinion are all contributing factors. In the United States and Europe, questions are being raised about the long-term viability of backing Ukraine, especially as domestic issues take precedence. Without sustained Western support, Ukraine's already precarious position could become untenable. The impact of this war extends far beyond the trenches. Millions of Ukrainians have been displaced. Cities lie in ruins, and the economy is in shambles. Families are being torn apart, and entire communities are being wiped out. The psychological toll on both civilians and soldiers is immense, leaving scars that will last for generations. Johnson's description of trenches filled with bodies is a grim reminder of the human cost of this conflict, a cost that grows with each passing day. The Ukraine conflict is not just a regional war. It's a proxy battle with far-reaching implications for the global order. For Russia, the war is about asserting its dominance and securing its borders against what it perceives as Western encroachment. For the West, it's about countering Russian aggression and defending the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. But as the conflict drags on, the limits of Western influence and unity are being tested. Can NATO remain cohesive? Can the U.S. maintain its leadership role? These are questions with no easy answers. Johnson's analysis suggests that we are at a critical juncture. Russia's offensive is gaining momentum, and Ukraine's ability to resist is waning. If Pokrovsk falls and Donetsk is cleared, it would mark a significant shift in the war's trajectory. For Ukraine, the loss of these regions would be devastating. For Russia, it would be a major strategic victory. The coming months will be crucial in determining the future of this conflict. Larry Johnson's remarks paint a sobering picture of a conflict that has reached a point of no return. The stakes are high, not just for Ukraine and Russia, but for the entire international community. As the war grinds on, the human cost continues to rise, and the geopolitical consequences become ever more complex. The question now is not just how this war will end, but what kind of world will emerge in its aftermath. According to Larry Johnson, they made their largest attempt to attack Moscow with drones, and the Russians shot them down. There was no significant damage at all in Moscow, but this is a desperation play on the part of Ukraine, right? And the Russian air defense proved capable of taking them down. What's fascinating is the exchange of bodies between the Russians and Ukrainians. For every 15 dead Ukrainians, the Russians got 1 dead Russian back. That's the rate at which the Ukrainians are being killed. I posted on Sonar21.com last night a brief video that shows a trench in Kherson just filled with Ukrainian bodies. And we're not talking 1 or 2, I mean dozens. The offensive by Russia is accelerating all along the front. They're moving according to the General Staff's plan and are in the process of preparing the battlefield to surround and envelop Pokrovsk, which has been a critical logistics center for the Ukrainians. The Russians have made significant advances over the last week in the very southern part of Donetsk. They could very well clear the region entirely by the end of December. And why that's important is that this is where the bulk of the Ukrainian army is concentrated. Ukraine does not have enough manpower. They're losing soldiers rapidly, they lack a means to train new recruits adequately, and even if they do, the supply of equipment is very limited. Those are the last 3 things you want working against you in a war because it means you won't be able to fight effectively. Thanks for watching.